Hey everybody, I am Genevieve Wood. Welcome to the Daily Signal's Facebook Live. As you can see, we are in the streets of downtown Washington at the March for Our Lives event. This is going on today from about, I think it got started around 11 a.m., probably going till 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. We're about 2 blocks up from Pennsylvania Avenue, which is what the camera's looking at right now. It's called the March for Our Lives, but we talked to some of the organizers before we got started today, and they said, actually, it's not really going to be a march. It's a stand against gun control, or I'm sorry, a stand against guns, because the president's not here, Congress isn't here, so they're not marching to either of those locations. They're basically coming down to Pennsylvania Avenue, where they have a main stage set up to hear different speakers, and basically just to rally and hold up their signs, a lot for the media. D.C. is a very, I would say, built-in city for left-of-center marches and protests and resist movements. And I'm not saying that a lot of these folks aren't from out of town. Some of them are, and we're going to try to talk to them. But there's also a lot of folks you can tell from this area as well. And you're seeing a lot of not just March for Our Lives signs. You're seeing a lot of anti-Trump signs. You're seeing a lot of folks wearing the pink hats that you saw at the Women's March. So it's a combination of different folks that are here, but no doubt about it, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of kids and a lot of families, and most of them, almost every single sign is about banning guns and more gun control, calls for more gun control. So we're going to talk to folks, find out not why I think we know why they're here, but what they hope to accomplish out of today and what happens after this. And then I'm going to talk to one of my colleagues at the Daily Signal, Jarrett Stedman, to kind of give some perspective, because I'll tell you, I don't think there's a big counter movement here today. This is all people who want to see more control on guns. All right, let's walk up here and talk to some of these folks, find out where they're from. Hey guys, can I talk to you? Where are you from?
We're from William Patterson University in New Jersey.
And what brought you here today? Obviously the March for Our Lives, but what do you want to see happen today?
We want to see policies and changes implemented that help to deal with the recent outbreak of school violence and shootings.
Well, it's not really even recent though, right? I mean, this has been going on for 20 years since Columbine, but what
17 shootings this year already, and it's only March.
What do you think needs to happen?
We need to have a lot stricter control on who can get weapons and how quickly they can get them, and we need to see tighter background checks and fewer loopholes in the system.
Anything else you'd like to see beyond the push against guns?
Bump stocks. They're a really big problem. They turn semi-automatic weaponry into almost like assault weapons, and that's really problematic because it allows people to circumvent the assault weapon ban.
What about those who've said, you're not from Florida, but I know you followed obviously what happened at Parkland. What about those who say law enforcement didn't do their job in terms of following up on this guy before he did what he did?
Well, it's really unfortunate when we see incidents of signs being ignored, such as when there's people who clearly shouldn't be able to purchase weapons. And another issue I know happened was that there was a sheriff at Parkland High School who refused to go in because he was afraid for his own life. And I think that everyone needs to be reminded that we all have a responsibility to stop these events, and that it's up to everyone to try and put a stop to these things, and that it's the responsibility of every man, woman, and child to look out for each other.
Thank you for speaking with us. Of course. We'll let you go on. Thanks. All right, let's talk to maybe we'll find these kids here. Hey guys, can you tell me where you're from?
San Francisco.
Okay, and what is this going on up here?
We're just representing, just yeah.
What are you hoping to accomplish here today?
That we should build people up and don't shoot them down.
How do you go about doing that? You came to Washington, so obviously you guys want to see politicians, lawmakers do something. What do you want to see them do? You guys can jump in.
Change, make a change.
What kind of change?
Do something to stop people, just common people using guns for violence.
Yeah, they need to make new gun laws. The ones that we have aren't working right now. So,
have you heard though that we have a number of gun laws on the books? You're right, but many of them aren't enforced. So if we make more laws and they don't enforce them, what difference will it make?
I think we need to enforce the laws a lot better.
You want to say that to law enforcement?
Yeah. I guess so, yeah.
What do you hope to accomplish here?
I hope to accomplish kind of representing is one of them. Kind of just showing that people from all around the country want to be here. I also want to say that we need to make sure that we're keeping check on the people that have been proven to like be messed up in the head and stuff and have a past of like bad things happening to them, so that we can make sure they're not doing anything bad like shooting up schools.
Yeah, so I mean, so some of that, I mean, obviously a lot of the folks here, it's about wanting more control when it comes to guns and the like, but mental health is a big aspect of this as well. So would you like to see Congress and state lawmakers do more?
Kind of attention towards mental health and kind of making sure that we're getting the right people inside the right places and and giving them the right help.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Let's walk along, see who some other folks. Now, let me just, Morgan, if you can look over to your left here. I will tell you, this is not a gun-free zone down here. There are cops everywhere. This reminds me of actually the inauguration activities where you saw this level of like law enforcement and military out for protection. So it's quite secure area, I would say. Oh, let's walk through this direction. Yeah, you're the only guy here that doesn't have a sign.
I don't have a sign. Do you want to see a good sign?
Yes. What would your sign say if you had one?
Talk to her.
Okay. Hello, how are you? What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Lucy Kiefer from Wisconsin Shorewood.
And what does your sign say?
It says, "Am I next?"
And what's the other side say?
We call BS. We're tired of politicians telling us what to do and what we need.
What do you want to accomplish from today? I mean, I know today is the march and you're not expecting a vote to happen today, but what do you want to see accomplished out of all this?
I want to see more people vote. People that can vote and they don't do it. It's crazy. Why don't you? You're putting everyone's life on the line.
What do you want them to vote for? You're saying you want more people to register to vote. Why would that change? How would that change things?
Because if you don't, your opinion isn't heard at all, which is even worse than if you vote for any candidate. Vote in general, because then you give up all your power.
How long are you going to be in D.C.?
Just for 3 days. We just came for the march.
Well, thank you for talking with us. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, guys, where are you all from?
Florida.
And what brought you? I know you're here for the march, but how are you? What do you? What I keep asking people is, we know why everyone came here today,
Right.
but what do you want to accomplish out of it?
What I would love to accomplish is some actual action as opposed to sitting and waiting. I think it's time that our representatives actually represented and respected the desires of the constituents. You have a group of people that has 64% of Americans favor greater gun control. Nobody's talking about taking away the Second Amendment's rights. Nobody's talking about taking away everything from anyone. What they're talking about is actually getting some representation from their elected officials to actually do something about this problem. It's been going on since Columbine, and we have to stop it.
So beyond gun control, I mean, and everything here, it pretty much seems to be that's the push everybody wants to see is more gun control. What about the mental health issue? What about the fact that law enforcement, including, look, we have a lot of gun laws on the books that don't get enforced,
Correct.
including background checks.
Correct.
So we can pass more laws, but if those laws aren't enforced, what difference is it going to make?
Passing the laws is part of it, but it's a multi-pronged issue, as we're all aware. But to deflect against a certain thing, assault weapons have no business in the hands of civilians. These weapons were designed for combat and military action. They're not designed for a bunch of weekend warriors or military wannabes to go out and play with. It's a danger to our society, and it's been demonstrated time and time again.
So, I mean, at Virginia Tech, I'm sure you remember that shooting.
Very well.
That young man killed, I think it was 32 people
Correct.
with 2 handguns.
Correct. Yeah, so here's the reality. I'm a handgun owner. I'm a CCW person. I have my background check. It took me 5.5 months to get approved for my concealed carry permit. So I am all of those things. But I'm also smart enough to understand that this is a problem in our society. Children should not be afraid to go to school. If you start impacting education, we used to have tornado drills. They're now having active shooter drills in our school. Our children are terrified.
Would you
going to fix that?
Well, let me ask, what would you even think though about what would be wrong with having like bulletproof glass in schools or safe rooms or magnetometers so that people coming through that sneak things through don't get through?
How are we getting as a society where we are accepting the fact that we are seeing on a weekly basis the slaughter of our children in the streets? How are morale-wise? I mean, this is an immoral activity. And we just stand by and we keep saying, well, it's not the right time to talk about it, or, oh, it's mental health. Other countries have mental health issues. Other countries have issues with violence. The issue here, the central issue here, is assault weapons that are easily available on our streets to anybody that wants to buy them. And that's where we need to enforce the current existing laws, but also toughen up things. The NRA is funded more than 80% by gun manufacturers. This is not a mom and pop Americana organization. This is an organization that is funded, a lot of it by foreign individuals, and they fund that money because they are trying to sow discord in America. And they benefit from that discord. And it's unfortunate. It's time for Congress and for the representatives that we elect, that we pay for, to actually listen to the citizens of the United States. Over 64% of Americans favor greater gun control. It's simple.
Thank you for talking with us. Appreciate it. Well, and as you can hear the crowd, it's a very anti-National Rifle Association march. That gentleman, I would say, knows a lot, but he was incorrect on a number of his facts. The majority of the school shootings that you've seen, not just this year but in years past, have not been done with assault weapons. And number two, you have to define what exactly is an assault weapon. I would encourage you, and you can look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see this. Facts are really important in this debate, and the Heritage Foundation has put together a school safety initiative to help inform the debate. So if you go to heritage.org, you see the school safety initiative there, click there. We've got all the facts, a lot of ideas for policy solutions, things that federal lawmakers can do, state lawmakers can do, but that also local school officials and school boards and communities can do. This is far bigger of an issue in terms of we really want to get serious about school safety and making it real. This is about a lot more than just putting more laws on the books that tell more people they can't have guns or infringe upon the rights of those who are law-abiding citizens. So I would encourage you to go to heritage.org, check out all the information that we have there, and you'll see a lot of, I think, corrected facts from some of the people that we've talked to today. All right, let's talk to a couple more, and then I'm going to bring in my colleague Jarrett Stepman with some thoughts on what he's been seeing here today. Maybe this woman here. Hi, how are you? We saw your sign. I'm Genevieve with the Daily Signal. Where are you from and what's your name?
I'm from Frederick County. My name is Jean Cusio Fields, and I'm a teacher. And I'm here to support the kids and support, books, not bullets. It's just not necessary. It's so out of control. We need gun reform.
Let me ask you, this does seem to be a march that really, it's called the March for Our Lives, but it really seems to be a march against guns. Is it beyond that?
I think we need to speak to Congress. Congress has to listen. So, yes, it's a march, and we're here in their backyard, and votes are going to count, and this next generation is going to make a difference.
What would you like to see happen out of today?
Smarter gun control, for them to actually take action, not just talk about it.
What does smarter gun control look like?
Good background checks. AR-15s are not necessary for civilians. One of my other signs is,
She's got multiple signs here.
We don't need this. This is for soldiers, not civilians. People have the right to have a gun, but it needs to be controlled. It needs to be watched.
Would you also like to see, whether it's gun control or other laws, law enforcement and the authorities surrounding that do a better job of enforcing the laws that we have? Because we have background checks.
Laws, yes.
We do. And as we know, not only in Parkland, but but even the non-loopholes, just they aren't enforced or they're not reported for background checks.
We need new laws. We need to enforce the ones in place. Yes, you're right.
Buy guns at auctions and stuff like that and kind of get away with getting those guns.
One of the challenges, too, I was looking at a study the other day, is 80% of gun crimes that are committed in the country, not just mass shootings, but overall, are committed with guns that people have gotten illegally. So they steal them, they grab them from somebody else. How do you address those situations?
So what? I mean, that's always going to happen. We still need to have common sense gun laws. Still need to have good background checks. Even if it saves one life, it's still worth having those stricter gun laws, common sense ones.
What else would you like to see beyond the gun control measures? I mean, mental health. Well, but I mean, beyond gun, like the mental health issue, the law enforcement breakdown issue.
Yes, all of those. Yes.
Would you like to see schools do more in terms of setting up safe rooms or bulletproof glass? And what about those kind of ideas?
You know, our kids shouldn't have to be afraid. They shouldn't have to be that severe. But, you know, we're going to have to do what we have to do.
We're going to be serious about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to do what we have to do, but I don't want to see teachers with guns. That's ridiculous.
How about armed security officers?
Yeah.
Like we just saw in Maryland.
Yeah, that's okay if they're vetted and they're trained and they're, you know, okay. Yes.
Thank you all very much for speaking with us. Appreciate it. And thank you for teaching the Daily Signal.
But is it a DC station?
We're national, but we're based here in Washington, yes. So you can check us out online, dailysignal.com. Thank you. Oh, great, sir. Hey, sir. Tell us your name and where you're from.
I'm Jack. I'm from Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, but I go to school here in Washington, D.C.
What brought you to D.C.?
Well, it's D.C. It's a very historical city. There's a lot of action going on. This is where all the politics is, but it's just a very interesting city, and I love it down here. Most of the time, that is.
So what do you think about what you're seeing here today, and why did you come out?
There's a lot of people here that I think their hearts are in the right place, but at the same time, I don't think that they've studied both sides of the issue. Now, I'm not saying I'm completely innocent, that I do have my own biases. Everyone has their own biases, but at the same time, I try to keep an open mind, and I've looked at some of the data, and I don't think that what they're arguing for is going to be necessarily effective. And you see so many people here that, they're saying, we don't want to take people's guns away. We don't want to confiscate them. Meanwhile, I see people here with signs that said, I wish Obama took guns away. Or they propose the Australian gun buyback program, but here in the U.S., where guns will be confiscated by the government. And
we also know that the program in Australia didn't change the numbers in terms of shootings or anything else.
You're right. That's entirely right. It had and studies have actually shown that. The gun violence rate has actually been going down in Australia before the ban, and the gun buyback program did actually nothing to increase that decline. In fact, in many respects, gun ownership in Australia has actually gone up in many respects. There's more guns in Australia now. Many people bought guns that are just not banned. And even when they introduced the program, when they said there were 7 mass shootings beforehand, 5 of them were committed with guns that are still allowed in Australia.
And I talked to a guy earlier who, very well-spoken guy, as you said, right, and, good intentions, but just some of his facts aren't right when they say we've had, these 17 mass shootings this year. Well, it depends on how you determine mass shooting.
I mean, and that was a lie that's been purported by many on the left, most notably, I think, Bernie Sanders, who I'm not a fan of Bernie Sanders. I'm the one millennial that doesn't like Bernie Sanders.
So why aren't more of you out here? I mean, we've been looking at almost every protest that we cover in Washington, whether it's the Women's March or Planned Parenthood or the science resist movements, whatever it is. There's usually some counter folks out here. We have not found any. We found you.
I'm actually surprised by that as well. And you would think that, I was here for the inauguration. There was obviously a lot of counter stuff. I came across it. I was walking through it in order to get to the parade and to the inauguration itself. I think a big reason is I think a lot of people on the right are afraid of the confrontation. I think my friend, who I go to school with, he was worried about getting beaten up because I think there's a lot of violent tendencies by those on the left that say, we want to end violence. I think there's a lot of violent tendencies when they find someone that disagrees with them, and I think this is they use a lot of bully tactics. I know this is something that one of my personal favorite people, Ben Shapiro, writes a lot about. I'm wearing a Ben Shapiro shirt. I got his Leftist Tears mug. He wrote an entire book about it called Bullies, and the left often uses many bully tactics, and I think a lot of people are afraid, whether it's Planned Parenthood, the anti-gun people, they're afraid of standing up to them and what they're going to do in retaliation, because I don't think there is a lot of acceptance among the left. I'm not saying all people, okay? Many liberals are very tolerant, but at the same time, you have some radical people out here that are not going to be accepting. One guy
Has anybody come up to you about your shirt today?
I heard one person just mention as they were walking away, like, Ben Shapiro. But other than that, no one actually, because I feel like a lot of people on the left, they don't know who Ben Shapiro is. They haven't been enlightened by his facts.
Ben is going to love this. We'll send him the clip.
Oh, my God.
Hey.
I would love that. Please do. Ben Shapiro, I love you. You're great. I listen to your podcast every day. Please run for president.
Hey, make sure they're registering a lot of folks to vote out here, so make sure you register and you can vote for him. Thank you for talking with us.
I am registered to vote in my state. I voted for the first time in this past election. Voted for Trump. Wasn't obviously my first choice. I'm not saying like I'm a Trump defender at all times, but like I will say when he does something good and criticize when he does something bad. But overall, a lot of the Trump stuff is overblown when it comes to like what so many people here say. I don't think he's as bad. He's not a racist. He's not a Islamophobic. He's not a bigot. And I think when you use hyperbole like that, you create more division in this country rather than unify. Everyone says we are coming together. You're not coming together. You're dividing when you call the NRA a terrorist organization or say law-abiding gun owners should have their guns taken away.
Where do you go to school?
I go to the Catholic University of America.
Great. Well, we'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks very much for talking with us. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming out. Well, hey, thank you. I got friends with me. You're out here by yourself with a Ben Shapiro shirt on.
I'm trying to find other people. I have no luck.
We found each other. Hey, thank you.
Thank you
very
so
much. All right, so maybe we'll do one more, and then I'm going to bring in my buddy Jarrett. Where should we go, Morgan? Straight up. All right. Vote, folks?
It is. It's Genevieve.
Okay,
Nice coat.
so I know this guy, Eric.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't want to be on?
He won't do it.
Oh, come
I'm
on.
way too shy. I can't. There's no way.
Okay, well, we'll talk. We'll talk, and I like your hat.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep going this way. I'll be honest with you, Eric. I'm just going to tell you, Eric cuts my hair. Okay. Let's cut through. We're not getting this gentleman's way. As I said, there's a lot of different elements, law enforcement and folks around here, both local police, surrounding states, and military as well. So it sounds like they're actually beginning the speeches right now from some of the main speakers that they have on stage. While they're doing that, you all can watch on the other networks. Let me talk to somebody who's going to be smarter than almost anybody else you hear on the other networks. Jarrett Stepman. Hey, Jarrett, how are you?
Good. How are you, Genevieve?
I'm good. So you've been walking around and looking at signs, and what's been your takeaway?
I mean, obviously, there's definitely a common narrative here, although there's a diversity in the messages I'm seeing here. It's not just about gun control. It's kind of a diversity of kind of left-wing movements kind of coalescing here together on gun rights. There's certainly a lot of organization. I think that's something I've noticed is there are a lot of people here waiting for, people to sign up to vote. There are a lot of people talking about, the next elections. There are a lot of people here trying to register.
Yeah, you can see, if you look over more than the guy in the yellow shirt, we've seen a lot of those folks around registering folks to vote.
Absolutely. But, and look, there's a lot of information that we see on these signs. Some of it, I have to say, somebody who's written quite a bit about the gun control issue. Some of them aren't true, or some of them talk about things like, for instance, I've seen signs that say these are 18th century laws for the 21st century. And, of course, the First Amendment, we have the internet. We're speaking here on camera. This is a 21st century technology, but we're protected by the First Amendment. So certainly there's a lot of narratives that are out there that become very common memes that I think if people thought twice about this, they would think, maybe we shouldn't end the Second Amendment. Maybe we shouldn't restrict gun rights that are a part of Americans' heritage of liberty in this country.
Well, as we have said regularly, I don't know there's anybody who doesn't want to see our schools be a safer place. And I don't think there's anybody who thinks that what we saw happen 20 years ago with Columbine, the others that have occurred in between now and then all the way up through Parkland, that we haven't done enough. But the question is, there's the difference between doing something and doing things that work. And we've had gun control laws for some time on the books. I'm not saying that you can't look at background checks and those things, but I mean, when it comes to truly making our schools safer, what do you think are the policy solutions that lawmakers ought to be looking at? And communities. It's not just about politicians.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the United States has been a gun culture since the beginning, and I think we've definitely, I mean, look, we've seen a rash of these school shootings, and of course, you know, the faces of these individuals are plastered on TV. We've seen all these kind of things with gun control, but the debate has stayed on gun control, not on a lot of the issues that have to do with culture, have to do with school safety. I mean, that's something that I've written a whole lot about recently, is a lot of school discipline issues. I mean, this shooter at Parkland was obviously a troubled student, and every step
a troublemaker. This is a kid that should have been disciplined well before the weeks leading up to the shooting.
That's absolutely right. And frankly, there's a lot of policies that have been set from the federal level that especially started with this 2014 guidance from the Obama administration dealing with school discipline. There's a lot of people that are these discipline problems to fall through the cracks because schools don't want to discipline. They don't want to go after them. And the question is, you know, how many of these other ticking time bombs are there out there? People with mental health issues, people who do come from very troubled backgrounds who've already shown themselves to be a danger. I mean, this individual from the Parkland shooting, you know, he had even announced to the world basically that he was going to be a school shooter. You know, that's not somebody who should be essentially free to roam around a school. That's not somebody who should be out in the street. That's somebody who should be dealt with before these kind of incidents take place. So using guns as the villain here, which, you know, we see this every time an incident happens. And of course, there are people, especially on the left, who have an agenda. They
Step out of the way, please. We have to try and get an ambulance through.
No problem. So this is they're trying to get an ambulance through. They said so there's been an incident of some sort, or maybe somebody's had a health issue coming through. Jared, you know, one of the things that when I've commented on how much police presence and security presence we've seen here, I would not call this a gun-free zone.
Not at all.
Yet so many of our schools are, and they proudly display it. We're gun-free zones, which is just your advertising. So if you come in with a gun, you're going to be like the only one here that has one, or one of the only people for sure. We know that when you look at public mass shootings, 90% of them happen in gun-free zones.
Absolutely.
This tells me, why wouldn't I want to be in that other 10% area?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, another shooting happened at a Maryland school, unfortunately, recently, which didn't get a lot of press because, of course, there was a school resource officer there on campus with a gun who was able to stop the shooter and shot the shooter, who eventually died due to these injuries. You know, unfortunately, one person did die because of the shooting, but think of how many other people would have been killed if there had not been an officer there to stop. It was the proverbial good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun.
And what if that school, and I don't know, but I'm guessing that they don't, what if they'd had magnetometers up, like we all walk through to board a plane, right? Or that you walk through to get usually into Congress and a lot of these federal buildings around here. They might have caught the kid walking into school that morning.
Absolutely. You know, there's always a balance between, you know, protecting the liberty of individuals and protecting the safety of the community. I think there's a lot of schools that could take proactive measures, especially, you know, President Trump has talked about arming teachers in the classroom, and I think most people would say, look, this shouldn't necessarily be something that's forced on teachers. This shouldn't be something that teachers are forced to do, but maybe a teacher with the proper training and who has the wherewithal, maybe it would make it safer in the classrooms if some teachers actually had firearms, could actually do something when these incidents happen, whether it be through guns, through bombs, through knives, through any of these other dangers that currently threaten our schools.
And you know, of course, when you've heard the pushback here, and some of this is they don't want armed teachers. Teachers should teach. They shouldn't be the law enforcement. But even when they've talked about just having more armed guards on campus, they say, well, there's no money for it, right? Well, first of all, we can always find money for what we really think is important. And two, and when you look at the blow up of administrators in the public school system, how many administrators there are, the money that is spent on administration, not even teachers.
Yes.
You might start saying, well, maybe we're not putting our money in the right places when it comes to how we support education.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. In the last 40 years, there's been an explosion of administrators on campus. And, you know, some of these safety programs, especially Army teachers, wouldn't require any additional money. This would simply allow teachers to defend themselves with firearms if need be. I mean, to a certain extent, that is what the Second Amendment was initially intended to do, which was to allow free citizens to protect themselves in danger. It's the individual right to self-defense. And look, we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a fallen one. There are a lot of bad people. I mean, we've had incidents that go back early into the 20th century, even the 19th century.
As I was telling a woman earlier, 80% of the gun crimes in this country are committed with people who've gotten their guns illegally. right? So you can pass laws, but as we know, people who want to break the law and do bad things sometimes don't care what the law in the book says. They're going to find a way to get their hands on, whether it's a gun, a knife, a bomb. We just saw what was happening in Austin, Texas recently. I mean, you can outlaw things, but you can't make people not do it necessarily.
Absolutely. I mean,
so you should protect yourself as best you can from it.
Absolutely. As you said, with the Austin bomber, I mean, that had nothing to do with gun laws. This was somebody who targeted individuals who used essentially very simple bomb-making techniques to go after people. That kind of stuff happened. Let's be frank. In the last 20, 30 years, there's been some liberalization of gun laws in this country. There's actually been a reduction in the level of crime in a lot of our communities around this country. I mean, a lot of our cities are a lot safer than they were in the 1980s when there was more restrictive gun policy. So I think we need to stop looking at simply as more gun control, less guns, less crime. I think there's definitely a disconnect in what their levels of criminality and dangerous behavior and guns themselves, which are simply a tool that has been around since the very beginning of this country, has been something in widespread use where you hadn't seen this kind of level of criminality before. So I think you need to look at cultural issues. I think you need to look at school safety issues and stop looking at this kind of red herring, which is this constant debate and this constant divide in this country over the issue of gun control.
Okay, final question for you. As you mentioned, everybody out here, the unifying thing is the March for Our Lives and generally a march against guns. But you do see people wearing the women's march hats, and I've seen a lot of anti-Trump signs and T-shirts and so on. You see a lot of people registering people to vote. There has been talk that this is a lot of groups on the left coming together, maybe who support gun control, many of them do, but who they want to use this as a mobilizing moment to get people registered and motivated to come out in the midterms and get Republicans out and then go after the president.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a case. I mean, look, you see a lot of signs here. That you see Moms Demand Action, which is, of course, a very pro-gun control group. You see Every Town for Gun Safety signs. You see these people organizing. I think this is definitely a very well-organized.
We also know that Planned Parenthood and the Women's March folks help organize this rally. They're not gun control groups.
Right. I think they see this all part of a coalition to kind of defeat conservatives and Republicans, to take down Trump. I think they're using this as a big opportunity to get people motivated, get people out in the streets, activated, get people excited to try to, get rid of Trump or things like that. So I definitely think they're using this as this platform. They're trying to make this build into something larger. There's no doubt about that.
And preying, I would say, upon some people's very good intentions, emotions, obviously, who are very concerned about whether they're the kids in schools or the parents. Again, everybody agrees we want to make our schools safer. The question is, how do we truly go about doing it, not just to say we're doing something again?
And that's such a common theme in all this is like, do something, and we really do have to look at what are the causes. I mean, we really have to. That's why I've taken a look at the school safety issue a lot in my recent writings. So there's been hearings on Capitol Hill, didn't get as much attention about the school discipline issue. We keep looking at this gun control issue and we keep hammering back and forth. The fact is, a lot of Americans just don't buy the fact if we try to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, people who believe in the Second Amendment, that we're going to stop violence in schools and in our communities. I think they look at the problems elsewhere.
Because in gun-free zones, it's law-abiding citizens that don't take guns in, but the bad guys sometimes do. Jarrett, thank you very much. Jarrett, you can find all of his work on dailysignal.com, and he has been following this issue, as some of our other colleagues have as well, not just looking at the laws here in Washington, but we've run stories by students at other schools around the country who talk about what it's like on their campus, what their schools have done, and why they're opposed to actually more gun control. So dailysignal.com for that. And again, my colleagues at the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org, lots of research there under our school safety initiative. Go to heritage.org. You'll find that there, and you'll find not just talking points. You're going to find here's what the facts are surrounding this debate. Here are real policy solutions that, again, should be considered at the federal level, the state level, but also in local communities, because this isn't just a political issue. It's not something that can be fixed by Washington. Everybody has a stake in it because it's a much bigger issue than just guns. Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us here on the Daily Signal. We will see you back here next time.